Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm excited to bring you a review for the new Transformers Legacy Voyager class Prime Universe Bulkhead. Bulkhead is the first new mold Voyager class toy in the Legacy line, coming alongside Blaster, who was previously released in Kingdom. And he is a bit of an interesting figure because he is a very Generation 1-ified version of the Prime Universe character. And this has been a very divisive decision amongst the fan base. A lot of people, when they heard we were getting Prime RC and Prime Bulkhead, they were expecting, updates to their Prime designs with modern engineering and all that. And then instead we got some characters that look quite different from how we remember. And while RC definitely maintains a lot of elements from her Prime design, just made into more of that blocky rectangular style of Generation 1, Bulkhead looks markedly different from how he looked in the Transformers Prime cartoon and toy line. So a lot of people not very smitten with that. A lot of people don't care. So, like I said, divisive. So my intent today is to look at the figure, on its merits, putting aside any disappointment I may feel at not getting an actual Prime Bulkhead update, and just see if what we have here is a good toy. That being said, if you see my reviews before, you know this goes. We're going to take a look at Bulkhead's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions, and we'll see Bulkhead himself in both vehicle and robot modes. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll get my final thoughts. So Bulkhead comes in your standard Legacy Voyager class packaging, very similar to the Deluxes, just bigger. You can see you got your half window here, where you can see Bulkhead's chest and his head, a little bit of his arms. Still no window, or no plastic, so hopefully nobody pops his head off or something at the store. You get his name right there, all your branding. You get Bulkhead's vehicle mode artwork on the front, and on the side, you get his robot mode, both far off and close-up shots. I do like that artwork. That does look very cool. You can see his name in Ancient Autobot right over here. Then on the back, we get renders of Bulkhead in both vehicle and robot modes. He takes 30 steps to transform, so he is no slouch when it comes to the engineering. I like that. Then we also get his QR code to scan into the Transformers website to get a nice little bio for Bulkhead. And then, on the side, we get the Autobot version of the Legacy side panel art. Here we get to see Bulkhead's instructions. And you get his full name here, Prime Universe Bulkhead. Get a render of the toy right here. Legacy, Transformers, all that. Open this up. And we get quite a bit going on the front. So first, this just shows you how to attach his shield/canopy to his back, and then this shows you how to have him attach his little Energon Gatling gun thing to his shoulder, how to attach his mace to his fist. You can see it actually opens up, which is pretty cool. How to convert his canopy to a shield and put it on his forearm, or how to actually combine the shield and the mace to form more of like a riot shield, and then have him wield a Gatling gun in his hand. So a lot of options here. I think that's pretty nice. And then we see the transformation from robot to vehicle. Continues all the way around the back, including the weapon storage. And like actual weapon storage. That's something you don't see a lot these days. Normally they just slap the weapons on top of the car. So he actually hides his away, which is awesome, because to me that is a very important design feature when it comes to Transformers. When you have a, station wagon driving down the road with like a bunch of machine guns just hanging off the side, it's not a very good disguise. Okay, now we get to see Bulkhead's vehicle mode, and you can see it's a military style, like convoy type truck. It's even got the little wheels on the back. I know there's a proper name for this, but I can't remember it at the moment. But basically it's kind of like a little armored carrier type thing. Big old open windows here in the front. And his arms, those are his arms in there, his forearms, they actually end up looking like the backs of seats, so kind of works out. Lots of nice paint on here, like this whole thing is painted, which is nice. And you see like painted details for the mirrors, the windshield wipers. The front grille is nice and painted with little headlights on it. No painted headlights on the back. In fact, there just are no headlights on the back. You can see his mace being stored there. The canopy thing's really nice. It's got some nice cloth-like texturing on it. He's got these little fuel tank looking things here. I don't think they're fuel tanks. They look like some sort of storage compartment or something. Got like straps on them, I think. His wheels are all one solid color, but at least they don't have pegs through them, which is nice, because I'm sick to death of the mushroom pegs sticking out of the wheels. And they have a very interesting shape to them. They have this weird, like, circle with a hexagon in it, and it's got like some ridges in there, and then it's got more kind of standard hubcap looking things going on here. This would be really nice if they were painted silver, but oh well. Good detailing on it either way. Really, the vehicle mode looks very, very solid. The only part that I think is a little weak, you can kind of see his robot thighs here. I mean, they're not super obvious, they're just kind of silver rectangles, but they are kind of poking out. And then on the back, these are pretty obviously feet. I mean, I guess you could pretend they're like some sort of a, I don't know, little tailgate thing, but it doesn't work very well. But it's kind of cool. As some unintentional play value, you could just fold these down and use these ports, put like blast effects on them or weapons or something. It's kind of neat. It's not documented anywhere, but you can totally do that. So overall, I think the vehicle mode's very solid. It rolls extraordinarily well. All 6 wheels contact the ground, they roll around. I like him. I think, you know, despite the fact that it's a far cry from a standard vehicle mode, it's a very good vehicle mode. It does pretty much everything right, so very much a fan of this. And now here is our comparison with the regular Prime Universe Bulkhead, the one who actually looks like he's from the Prime Universe. And you can see very different vehicle mode. The original one sports what appears to be an SUV, or some sort of all-terrain type vehicle. That's a nice little vehicle mode, you know, it does the job well, it's got a fair amount of paint on it. Very different shape, right? This is much more streamlined, it's a bit smaller and more compact, and it's more of like an olive shade of green than the almost like lime green, and that's misleading. When I say lime green, I don't mean the normal color lime, I mean like the actual color of like a lime skin right there. It's a very different shade of green there on the front for sure. So they're both just doing their own thing, and I think they do their own thing very, very well. Just 2 very different flavors of Bulkhead. Okay, now it's time to transform Bulkhead, and, you know, I would say buckle up because it is a pretty complex transformation, but it's a satisfying one. So, the first thing you want to do is lift up this canopy section, just on this hinge here. In fact, well, really, I guess you just take it off for now, keep it out of the way. Then you want to remove his weapons. See how they're stored in there? How cool is that? When was the last time we got something like that, huh? So you pull those away, you get this nice little diamond plate truck bed here, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna open this up, flip the feet out, and we're gonna open these panels right here while untabbing these. In fact, I should untab these first. So open all that up there, and then these guys, you're gonna swing in, you're gonna rotate them 180, and tuck them away inside the leg, close up the panel. Really nice little bit of storage for this truck kibble here. Well, they are tabbed into the thighs, so make sure you pop them out. You don't want to try to force it. So rotate it, boom, boom. We can straighten the legs out now. Just kind of get them nice and set up like that. Very nice. Then we want to take the extra wheels here, fold them inward until they just meet in the middle here. They don't tab together or anything, they just kind of stay there. Then we want to push this up in here like that. Kind of just get it out of the way. We are going to pull his arms out of here. So what we want to do that is lift up on this truck cab. Get the arms out of the way, like so. I'm going to separate these. Swing them out to the side. Alright. Then you're going to take this black piece, just push it in. Make clearance for the head, which you're going to flip up here. See, we're getting there. Alright, you're going to fold this down. Fold this forward till it clicks into place. And we're just going to start kind of collapsing everything down here. So, get this to where this long blue piece right here is going to tab into the abdominal section. Make sure you got all your clearance. Might try to stick on you a little bit. So you got to make sure that these shoulder panels are swung all the way up, because there's a groove there that they have to fall into when this little cab section goes down here. Then it'll be able to plug in there just like that. Nice and secure. Now you can get the bulkhead's head the rest of the way up. I'm going to tab these shoulder panels in to the vehicle front. We're almost there, folks. Alright, so we got everything here. Let's go ahead and reattach his little canopy section now. So leave it kind of splayed out. Push it up in there. Just got like this little backpack thing. Now for our, I guess, neutral configuration, let's go ahead. We're going to open up the mace ball just like that. Use this 5mm post to slide it over one of his hands. Close it up. And then we're going to take his little Gatling gun and use one of these little 3mm posts to go into either side, but canonically it goes here. Now in my copy, this is actually really loose. It doesn't there's not a lot of friction here. Now it'll stay if we just keep him standing, but it doesn't really want to stay in. It stays on this side just fine. And if you flip it upside down, it stays in this side pretty well. So it just seems to be a combination of a somewhat loose hole and a somewhat undersized peg on the side that ended up making mine just a little bit floppy. Once you get it in there, it should stay in place more or less. Alright, let's go ahead and adjust our camera so we can get a good look at Bulk here. And here it is. This is the new robot mode for Bulkhead. Now I will say, initially, I wasn't a fan of it. It was a very, very big departure from the Bulkhead we're used to. And, it kind of offended my sensibilities there. I'm like, oof, boy, he looks very different. Now, having him in hand and getting used to him, I'm actually finding myself very much liking him. He is a big change. He does look more like an old 80s style Generation 1 character than he does the Prime Bulkhead. The only exception being his head, which is more or less unchanged. He's still got the big old jaw. He doesn't have a nose, so they didn't G1ify his head like they did for RC. That part actually remained the same, which is weird. She got a similar body type and a different face. He got the same face and a completely different body, so go figure. But we can see the robot mode is very, very solid. His head is on a ball joint, so it moves around. It gets a pretty good amount of clearance here. It looks like his jaw is going to contact this area right here, but it doesn't. It just misses. That really doesn't want to stay on. Hopefully your guys' copies don't have that issue. I hope it's just mine. So that is annoying. This thing wants to flop around. Alright, so we got that canopy section on his back, which is fully detachable. Universal shoulders here, which work very well. Bicep swivel. Single bent elbows, but they get a nice deep bend. He has wrist swivel, which is really nice. He's got a full waist swivel here. Universal hips. Thigh swivel, which can go most of the way around in robot mode. He's got a nice deep knee bend, goes a bit more than 90. And of course he's got ankle tilt. And a little bit of rocking too, which is pretty nice. Look at that. This is a very, very posable figure. So, when you combine the high level of posability, the solid feel to the guy, and the very complex transformation and nice vehicle mode, I am so blown away by this. This is a level of quality and fun that I haven't seen in a lot of Voyagers recently. And it's so funny because, I started out really disliking Bulkhead just for what he was, and now I find myself really, really enjoying this guy. He's doing his own thing, but he does it very, very well. Speaking of what he does well, let's go ahead and look at his different weapon configurations. So the first thing we want to do is take the canopy off the back. So you just want to wriggle it free of this little black armature here. See, it plugs in with this little post right there. You can just leave that out of the way. And now you want to basically turn it inside out. So you want this hard metal part that looks like a riot shield, facing outward. And you take this peg right here and you just fold it up like that. And then we go ahead. You need to actually straighten his elbow out a bit because this thing's bigger than his arm. You just plug that handle into his forearm, close this up around it, and he's got himself a nice little shield. Pretty cool looking. You can deflect, blasts while he's beating up on enemies with his mace or shooting them with a little shoulder gun. Or the other option we have for this, so go ahead, remove it from there. That fell off again, but it's okay because we're gonna leave it off. You're gonna plug this handle into this port right here on the front of the mace. In fact, it's covered with ports. But you want the front one right here. Oop.
handle folded back in. Come on, buddy. All right. Get it in there. Close the shield around the mace. And then, since it's already off, go ahead and just have him wield it in his hand. So now he's got this kind of riot shield set up, and he's got a handheld firearm. So now he can do some damage from long range, block attacks. Really, any combination of these things. You can leave this on the shoulder if you want. You can do, anything, dual wield weapons. The toy's got quite a few possibilities, and all of them look pretty good. So I find myself very much impressed with this toy, whereas I wasn't expecting to. Really, the only issue I have is just, again, the loose connection for this thing on the shoulder on my copy. But I don't... It doesn't seem like that's something that's universal, because it's like specifically, on that one side with that one peg. I think it's just my copy. Most of you guys probably won't have that issue. At least I hope not. But yeah, everything else about it is very solid so far in just, robot and vehicle modes. Very impressed. Now, one thing I want to point out very quick, we can see on the outside of Bulkhead's canopy, he has what appears to be functional mini-con pegs. Now, that's something I haven't seen in a long time. And, ever since I saw them, I wondered, do those actually work? Are they actually the right size? And if so, why are they there? Well, I don't know why they're there. Bulkhead has never, been part of the Unicron trilogy or anything back when they had, regular mini-cons. Maybe it's a callback to the Japanese version of Prime, where it was, Arms Micron, and they had their mini-cons, but I don't think those guys actually had any kind of, mini-con ports like the old school Unicron trilogy ones. So I'm not really sure, but I can confirm using Thrust's mini-con, Armada Thrust, because I think the colors work really well. Mini-cons can attach to this very, very well. Look at that. I don't know why. It's very interesting. We know that there's supposed to be an Armada Starscream coming, and I fully expect him to have, pegs like this. Why Bulkhead has them, I have no clue. But they work. So that's really cool. There's, some crossplay from the early 2000s right there. I won't question it, I'm just happy it's there. I think it's really neat. So yeah, you can load Bulkhead out some mini-cons if you want to. But this probably looks really good in his vehicle mode when this is all closed up and you could have, a guy like this with a missile launcher on either side. Lots of fun stuff you can do. So it really just adds to the play factor for this toy. In fact, the next time that the designers do some sort of interview or something or answer questions, somebody really should ask why he has those mini-con ports, what, the reasoning for that was. I'd like to know. Now for another comparison shot with the Prime Bulkhead, here we have that toy in its robot mode. Now I want to specify, there are two different, Voyager-sized Prime Bulkheads out there. There's the first edition one, and then there's the Prime Robots in Disguise one, and that's what this is. So he's not the first edition. They do have some, pretty big differences between them, even though they're meant to represent the same character. So you may or may not consider this the quintessential, plastic version of that character. He's got some accuracies, some inaccuracies to the show, but overall, he gets the point across pretty well. So this is more or less how Prime Bulkhead normally looks, right? He's a very husky-looking Transformer. And he got that look from animated Bulkhead, who was the first real version of this guy. There was Energon Bulkhead, but he was a very, very different character. Prime was a lot like animated, but not quite as dumb. Not super smart, but a little more battle-hardened, a little wiser, and very, very protective. So now you can kind of see the inspirations here where, you kind of take a very angular, very rounded kind of tubby bot, and then you turn him into this, more War Machine looking character with very blocky proportions, very, very 80s looking. And, it's weird. I'm slowly starting to find myself liking this version of Bulkhead more. He looks incredibly strong. Say what you will about the, gigantic grapple-looking chest here. Everything else about him reeks of... look at the thighs. They almost look muscular, which is an interesting feat for a robot, especially a G1-based robot. So the more, I see these two together, the more I'm really kind of coming around to this design. The old Bulkhead is cool. I absolutely love Transformers Prime. I love Bulkhead. But I am really starting to warm up to this take on him just a little bit more. Now, part of that could be because this toy is, again, not a very perfect representation of the, show model. I think the show model looks a lot better than this, but still, I'm starting to see why the people that were a little more optimistic about this toy, when it was first revealed, felt that way. Okay, there's one more group shot I wanted to do, and this is because we mentioned the Grapple chest. So we have Earthrise Grapple here. And a lot of people, when Bulkhead was first leaked / revealed, compared him to Grapple and noticed how his chest, and his whole kind of proportions were very similar. And to a degree they are. They both have the very, blocky truck front chest here, very cube-like. But then the more you look at it, the more you realize that they are quite different. He is much, much more thickly built than Grapple is. And his chest is actually much more enormous than Grapple's. Like, the Grapple and Inferno toys, some people never like their designs much because of, the big blocky chest area here. I mean, Bulkhead's is far worse. But it suits him, right? He's a big guy. He's supposed to have this presence to him. So, yeah, there's a similarity there. But seeing them actually together, you realize he's not quite the carbon copy that a lot of people made him out to be. It actually got so ridiculous that some people were even claiming that he was a retool of Grapple. But you can see here, they have nothing in common at all. They both just happen to use the front of a truck for their chest, and that's it. But nonetheless, some people were absolutely convinced that he was actually a retool of this guy. And, it's almost becoming like the new, everything's a retool of Silverbolt at this point. So I do find that kind of funny. And again, I do see the similarity, but when you see them together, you realize they are actually very, very different toys. And that's good. I'm glad that they don't feel very samey, in hand. And this completes our look at the new Legacy Prime Universe Bulkhead. I have to say, this is easily one of the most surprising toys that I've dealt with in a long time. I did not like this thing when it was first revealed. I couldn't get over how incredibly different it was from the, the Bulkhead that we know. And I really didn't like what they had done. But the more I mess with it, the more I look at it, hold it, transform it, the more I'm actually finding this is one of my favorite Legacy figures so far. He does everything right. He's a Voyager, and he feels like a Voyager. He's not small by any means. He's very, very tall, very bulked out. Has a really awesome transformation that can even get a little, confusing sometimes. You got to kind of practice it to get it down right. But it's not necessarily bad because it's not frustrating. You don't have issues with parts catching, and if you do something a little wrong or you mess up, it's a very satisfying transformation. It just takes a little bit of getting used to because honestly, it's more complex than most of the toys we've been messing with, and I find myself being pretty out of practice, right? I mean, gone are the days of Revenge of the Fallen, super complicated Transformers. So I had to really kind of, knock the dust off a little bit. But, actually getting to transform him and mess with him has been a lot of fun. I very much enjoy everything about this guy. Solid vehicle mode, solid robot mode, lots of accessories, random Minicon compatibility, which I'm not complaining about at all. And, I mean, he's loaded with ports and everything. I mean, this guy was definitely made to be decked out. I mean, even these hexagons in his tires, I'm pretty sure, are 5mm ports. So, he's got it all. You could really load this guy up. And I'm starting to find myself liking him more than the regular Bulkhead, which is sacrilegious. I absolutely love Transformers Prime, so to say that is, that's bad. But it's also, a real endorsement of this toy. I like everything about this guy. So if you haven't, gone and picked him up, I fully recommend doing it, even if you didn't think you were interested, because, he's Prime originally. Well, now he's G1. He's officially part of Generation 1 canon. So pick him up. You'll like him. Once you get over how different he is, or the fact that he's not, an original G1 character, you'll find that he just fits right in, even with the weird, jaw face and everything. I love this guy, and I think you will too, and, for Voyager price, he's one of the best deals out there, so definitely pick this guy up. Of course, that is just how I feel about Bulkhead, so now I want to know what you all think of this toy. Are you as excited about him as I am? Were you initially not a fan of this, and maybe, have since come around either by watching this or by getting the toy yourself? Or do you still not like him, or did you like him from the get-go? Maybe you were much more optimistic than I was. Any and all feedback's always welcome in the comments section.
If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. And thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Transformers Legacy Voyager class Prime Universe Bulkhead. With all that said, I will see you next time.